Dave.
Mine should muted.
We're live. Yep. 17 seconds in.
All right. Well, that was a good usage of our time. Usually it counts down. What's up with that?
I don't know.
Oh, well. Well, thank you everyone for joining us live and on the replay for episode 5 of Paving the Way.
I'm Patrick Mullen.
I'm Jonathan Brown, and we're here again today with David Clark. Say hello, David.
Hello.
David.
David. Thank you, David, for the hello. So we're going to talk to you today actually about indoor air quality. It's probably a pretty big topic on everyone's minds right now, so we thought it'd be something good to get some information out there, do a little bit of education on, and see if we can help out educating everybody on that. So really the conversation today is just about the air. So David, why don't you tell us what's in the air?
What's in the air? Well, that's an easy one. We got like pollen that's in the air. There's mold spores, smoke, definitely around this area too. Smog, bacteria, and we all know viruses are in the air.
Viruses like the flurona?
What is that?
It's just a virus.
Oh.
I think
Is it one or two viruses?
It's two.
Oh, at the same time?
Yes. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about that. All right. So talking about that in the air, there's a lot of stuff in the air, right? Especially in commercial buildings where we have lots of people. I mean, we have a commercial building with a lot of our employees who are in here, and it's a big priority for us. Should it be a priority for other owners?
Yes, most definitely so. I mean, your air quality should be just as important as making sure the lights are on in the building, making sure that the water works so they can use the toilets. I mean, air quality should be on the top priority list of all business owners and all building managers.
So what is this indoor air quality is kind of what we're talking about. What is indoor air quality?
Well, indoor air quality kind of starts with 4 different steps that we have. There's like the ventilation. That's how much outside air comes into the building. There's making sure that the air is balanced correctly. The humidity inside of buildings. Then you got the filtration of the air going through that building.
All right. So are there negative effects to the indoor air quality? You kind of Googled, you read me something earlier today, actually. Can you read me that about what indoor air quality is?
Yeah. So when we were talking about indoor air quality, I was just curious because I know like me and most people, first thing we do nowadays is just Google what indoor air quality is. And this is what indoor air quality says when you Google it. Indoor air quality is the air quality within and around buildings and structures. IQA is known to affect the health, comfort, well-being of building occupants. Poor indoor air quality has been linked to sick building syndrome, reduced productivity, and impaired learning in schools.
Reduce productivity.
Sick building syndrome?
I haven't heard of that. That's a good one, but
that's why I love Google.
Because someone comes into your office with coronavirus, if you don't have enough new air coming in, if you don't have the correct filtration and, with the correct types of filters to filter out all the viruses and bacteria, stuff can spread pretty quickly, as we've seen, literally happening around the world right now. This virus is going crazy. We have a record number of cases, and, I would guess that you could probably attribute a portion of those cases to poor indoor air quality.
I think so. We've had a couple cases where people got COVID from the office, but I don't think we've had anybody who got it in the office. And I believe that's a direct result of the work David's done in our office to make sure that our air quality is where it needs to be.
When we moved into this office, we had someone, they came and had to replace the unit. They didn't hook anything up right. They didn't put the filters in place. They didn't use the correct filters. They had the outside air completely shut off, so we had no indoor fresh air coming in through the unit, which I believe it's a 30%. It's supposed to be 30%.
35% outside air should be always coming into your building.
Yes, we had zero. It was completely shut off. We won't name any names for who did the installation, but It is a big deal.
I think that's a big part of why David created the air quality assessment, right? We have a thing called an AQA, right? Why don't you explain what the AQA is to us?
So the AQA all got produced and started with Doug Sterling. Unfortunately, Doug is no longer with us. But the first thing we did is we wanted to vamp up how we service buildings, and we wanted to go above and beyond. So most service contractors, what they do is they just jump up on the outside of your building, change the filters, peek inside to see if they see anything running bad so they can run downstairs and charge the customer. But with us, we care about the air quality just as much as we care about the unit on top of the roof. So what we do is we offer an air quality assessment. And then when we come out and we inspect your unit, we also inspect the air quality in the building. We check the humidity. We check to make sure the economizer or the outside air hoods are working properly and that 35% air is actually coming into the building. We check to make sure your stat is running correctly. Like most people don't realize, but your unit should be up and running, cleaning that air an hour before you even show up into the building.
Do we check the balance of the air to make sure everyone's getting the correct amount?
Yes, that was another thing I was to touch on. We then check for little areas to see if the air is properly balanced. That's something with experience. You can walk in and you can kind of see different areas. So we have a hood that checks different zones, because a lot of buildings, people go in there and say, "Oh, I'm hot," and they go up there and shut off the air to that section of the building. So we check to make sure that's all balanced. We check the humidity, make sure the humidity is in between 30 and 60%. So
And that's all part of your AQA.
correct. We actually fill out a whole AQA form and we send that over.
So I want to focus really on the benefits of. I want to focus on just educating on why this stuff's important, right? So yes, we do the AQA. We kind of talked about that one before. We can get into that one, but I'm interested in how you came up with that AQA. Like, how do you even know what you're talking about? Like, I mean, I get you got a lot of experience in the field, but how do I know that you know that's what's best? How did you figure that out?
Well, that all stems from ASHRAE, who's pretty much the regulators of the HVAC industry. These people come in and they determine how buildings should be ran, how the air should be flowing through the building, and put regulations and recommendations on how all this should go down. So this whole thing came about with Doug, and we all know the pandemic hit the area and everywhere so hard. We realized there was an importance, and we knew from experience that we didn't really ever care about air quality. That was like an extra thing to buildings that most building owners never wanted to put any money into. So we realized that there was going to be a priority on this. And first thing we did is got with ASHRAE and we based our whole 6 steps to safe opening. We based all that off of ASHRAE and what they're recommending.
Is ASHRAE like a local thing or what? I've never heard of ASHRAE.
Yeah, I was just looking it up. I've heard of it, but I wanted to spell it out. It's ASHRAE. And I believe that stands for the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers.
What do they do that actually affects us? I actually know the answer to this one, so I'm just going to answer my own question. But ASHRAE actually is Title 24. So if you've heard of Title 24 as a property manager or a building owner or any kind of contractor, really, Title 24 is ASHRAE. They determine everything that we do for all of our heating and air conditioning. They are the deciding factor, and they are the regulatory committee also for everything. So when David's saying that he and Doug built this off of ASHRAE, ASHRAE is the one who will tell us how to do this. And we believe that they give us the right advice, and we follow that advice. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I think you kind of mentioned them, but what are the major factors that ASHRAE says are important?
Well, there's 5 of them that we came up with, or what ASHRAE is pretty much pinned down exactly what needs to happen to bring up the air quality or to monitor your air quality. And like the first one is ventilation. That's how much outside air comes in, like I was talking about earlier. That's making sure the air changes in the room.
Why don't you list them and we'll go through them one at a time, I think.
It's ventilation, balanced air, humidity, filtration, and UVC lights.
All right. Well, ventilation. then we have a little card too that we've created here that we can kind of give to some people that kind of breaks a lot of this down. So I like to look at this when we're kind of talking about it. So ventilation sounds to me like it's one of the most important. So why don't you explain to us what ventilation, why it matters?
So ventilation is all about the air changes in a room. So you want at least 4 air changes per hour in each one of your rooms. And how that's done is bringing in 35% outside air into your airstream system by an either an economizer or an outside air.
What's an air change?
Air change is the air that's inside this room. It's bringing air in and it's bringing air out.
Just some of it or all of it or?
All of it.
So you got to replace all the air 4 times every hour in a room?
Correct.
Sounds like so much.
Well,
it really does. I mean, it just sounds like
and that's why a lot of systems aren't running correctly. Most people don't realize that even though the temperature inside your room or your building might be where it needs to be, but there should be a process where it's still the fans running and we're still getting those outside air into the room and doing those air changes.
So outside air means 35%. So that means 35% of the air that's coming in is being
brought from outside.
If what if we have time? Because we're in Rancho and we've had years in the past where lots of smoke comes in. What happens? It's the first time I kind of heard about this. My first question is, what happens when smoke comes in and you're pulling in outside air?
Yeah, that's always the tricky part when it comes to that. And that's why, there's things like advanced air collection systems that you can do that can really mitigate how much of that smoke actually comes into your building.
Can I reduce the amount of outside air during times of smoke? Like, can I just press a button and reduce it, or how does that work?
No, it's all set up to your unit. So it gets a little complicated when it comes to the smoke. That's when filtration helps a lot in making sure that those filters are the proper MERV level to capture a lot of that smoke.
Yeah, once you get into the MERV 11 and MERV 13 filters, they're supposed to filter out all of the smoke.
Yeah,
for days like that.
All right, so ventilation. So what else is there about ventilation that would be interesting or helpful?
The pre and post occupancy, I would feel like is a major factor. That's one of the first things we do when we do an air quality assessment on buildings is we go in and we check the programming on the stats. We make sure that the system's up and running an hour before people show up to that building, and we make sure it's still running an hour after they've left. That gives the system enough time to improve the air quality of the room and the space before anyone even shows up to work.
I mean,
when he says stat, he's meaning thermostat.
Thermostat, sorry.
So just in thinking and doing math in my head, so you're saying that if you're doing a 1 hour pre and a 1 hour post occupancy flush, so you're basically switching the air out in the room 4 times before anybody shows up and after everybody leaves.
Correct. We're getting that air. We're changing that air, and it's yes, 65% of air is coming back into that same space, but it's getting through the filtration system. So with the proper filtration system, it improves the air quality a ton, and that's where we can roll into humidity. Having the humidity at that right point helps capture like viruses, mold spores. They have to be a certain humidity in the room for the air to actually get captured and to get transferred through that filtration system. That's where humidity comes into the section and it plays a huge part.
Okay, so that's humidity. That's the third step is humidity, right?
And then,
so what does humidity need to be? Actually, you know what? I wanted to go back because I have one more question about ventilation before we jump onto that one. Because this is another note that I had in here that always surprised me. So this is saying that your system needs to be running 100% of the time when occupied. Is that true?
Correct.
That seems crazy. So that means I need to heat or air condition the unit all the time, even if it's the perfect temperature?
Like I said before, it's really not about the heating and the cooling. It's about getting the fan operational and getting those air changes going.
Oh, so the fan can run without the heat or the air conditioner?
Correct.
Okay. So it's just moving the air to keep cycling that air. Is it pretty common that you see a lot of units where they're not running all the time?
Yes. Oh, big time.
Is that a Title 24 requirement?
It's a Title 24 requirement.
All right. So if I'm in a building and I hear my air kick off, like while I'm sitting at my desk working, if it kicks off, is that a sign that I'm not Title 24 compliant?
No, a lot of these systems, they'll ramp up and ramp down. So you might think your unit is off, but that fan could just be ramping down a little bit. So
Okay. I got you. Okay, so let's roll into humidity then. You're saying humidity needs to be at a certain level. What is that? What's that level?
30 to 60%.
40 to 60%.
That's what the card says.
40 to 60.
That's what the card
That's what the
says.
card
You
says.
said 30 earlier, and I had thought that already that it was 40 to 60, and then I just saw it on the card.
This is the card we're referring to right here. 40 to 60. All right, well, 40 is in the 30, so we'll take it. Why is that important? Why does it need to be 40 to 60? Like what happens if it's not enough moisture in the air?
It's all about getting things like the moisture in the air will give things weight. So once it gives it weight, it gives it enough weight to get captured through the air changes of that room and gets up into the filtration system. If the humidity is not at that certain level, then things can either drag on the floor or not get captured to make it through that filtration system.
I did. I think this was the one I had I was most confused about, because we had done all these research, we looked into a lot of things when COVID first hit, and about how viruses work, and the weight of COVID is actually, I can't remember the number because numbers are
0.3
not.
microns.
There you go, 0.3 microns.
It's funny you remember that.
Which is, it's not very much at all. It's actually such a light weight that it's not affected by gravity, which means that if you cough in the air, those particles can stay in the air indefinitely. So you could cough into the air, particles. If there's moisture attached to those particles, then the moisture pulls those particles down. But particles
Or
without
allows
that
them to
moisture,
be moved by the
Yes.
actual
Yeah.
but it will
wind or
cough and go into the air. And if your air is too dry, there's no moisture that will then attach to those particles. If you have the right moisture, the moisture attaches, which gives that particle weight and lets the air then move it through the air to the vents and the returns to bring that air back in.
through the filter.
Yeah, through the filter. And the big thing with us nowadays is COVID. We all know COVID's always in the air, and that's why everyone's wearing masks and all that. They actually say COVID can still be, I forget what they call it. It's still active 2 hours into the air. So it takes it 2 hours to actually die, so it can't infect anyone. And that's why it's so important in every aspect of your building to have those air changes flushing. And this is ASHRAE's major stance on this, is why air quality is so important, and they bring humidity into the picture when they talk about it.
So if you cough into the air and put particles out there and you're not doing the 4 air changes, that air could sit there for 2 hours
Correct.
and still infect somebody. But if you have humidity the right way and your ventilation is correct, obviously with the filtration, which we'll talk about soon, then you're saying that should be switched out at 4 times an hour.
Correct.
So basically you're talking 15 minutes max that it could even stay, and that's just to completely replace the air. So now you're talking minutes rather than hours.
Correct. Yes. And to take it to another level, this is where ASHRAE's really started promoting UVC. And UVC is an extra additive light fixture that goes inside your coil on the roof or wherever your unit is sitting. And this helps kill the virus as it's flowing through your air system. Because that's the thing, is you could be cycling your air and the filter might not be capturing it all, but this is where they're saying UVC is, I'm pretty sure they're saying they're about 99% effective when it comes to killing most anything that flows through the UVC lights.
Where would the UVC light go? Like, does it go in the room or?
No, it goes in the unit. So some units are hanging above your ceiling, some units are on the roof, some units are on the side of the building. Wherever your unit lies, there's a coil. So your air comes through, goes through a filter, and then it goes to the coil. And the coil is the system that has a refrigeration system going through it that will either heat or cool the air. But as it's going through that coil, it would be getting zapped by the UVC. And that's why ASHRAE has really brought UVC into the picture when it comes to air quality and the importance of bringing up your air quality in the building. ASHRAE literally pretty much says you can't even really talk about how it is very important to have UVC installed in your unit. And that's something that I would say 99% of all buildings in the area don't have on their units.
All right. So that's, let me see, UVC, we talked about ventilation, humidity. What else you got? Then we got balance. Let's do balance.
Yeah, I say, not even looking at the card, I know we go into balance there. And so balanced air is to me is just common sense. If you've got so much air running into this room, the same size room next to that room needs the same amount of air. So it's just balancing the air in your building. We go off of something called CFM, cubic feet per minute, and that's how we gauge how much air is going through a register. So if you have a room that's 10 by 10 and say there's 200 CFM, the room next to it that's 10 by 10 needs 200 CFM. And I can't tell you how many times we go into buildings and there's Deborah in accounting who says, I get cold, and some building maintenance guy jumps up above the ceiling and shuts off her vent. Now she's not getting any air quality improvements from the system because she has no air flowing into her room.
And
So
it's messing up how much air is going to all the rest of
correct. And it's not just going to the room next door. It could be going to a room far, far away. So it's very important to make sure your system's balanced correctly. And this is everything we talk about, everything we do is everything that we strive to do when we put in new systems. Every time we do a new system, Title 24 requires us to fill out we have to pay a third party to come out and air balance a whole building. So 9 times out of 10, every building that is new construction done, the guys installing the HVAC system can't even check the balance without a third party coming in and balancing out the whole system. That's how important it is for Title 24. And this is something that once a building gets finished and completed, it gets lost. People tamper with the system, and I can't tell you how many buildings we get into, and the whole system is completely unbalanced.
Okay. Last thing I have is filtration.
Filtration. And
So, filters don't really seem important to me. That's just me, though.
I think they last forever, and having to buy new ones is BS.
Yeah.
You can just put a mask up in there.
Maybe David can tell us something different.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's filters is common sense because we all know what our filters look like on our houses when we don't change them. So, you see how much stuff gets captured on all of your filters in your house. I mean, there can't be anyone that doesn't know what their filter looks like. So the importance to having the right filter to capture the right particles that are in the air is very important.
So I have a commercial building. What's the minimum filter I can have in that building?
Minimum filter, you want a MERV 13 filter.
Yeah.
That's when you're installing a new system. Title 24 says your minimum should be a MERV 13. You can't just go into an existing system and throw a MERV 13 filter on because the fan and the capacitors can't handle it because it's such a strong filter that it slows the air down, and you need larger fans that can handle being able to push the air through.
But if you are interested in air quality, you should have a MERV 13 filter in your system, no matter what.
Well, and this is why you kind of leave it to the experts. This is when we come out and we do the AQA. We know HVAC systems, and we look through them, and we put in the correct filter that is supposed to be for that unit. But like Pat was touching on, there are some units that can't handle a thicker filter.
No, I understand that. I'm not arguing that point. What I'm saying, though, is that older systems that are not equipped to hold a MERV 13 filter are not going to clean the air as well as a system that will put a MERV 13 air filter in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because a MERV 11 actually won't catch viruses. You need to have a MERV 13 in order to be small enough to catch the viruses. A MERV 11 doesn't have the filter's too spread out, and they can pass right through.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. And this is where UVC plays a big role on a lot of that stuff.
And one more that I want to point out too is putting a MERV 8 filter into a MERV 13 slot is not the best thing either.
But it'll be way more efficient. Just kidding.
That's what we had in our argument. It literally flapped around as you.
Yeah.
It
wasn't sealed at all.
No, it was a mess. Okay, so I think that's all the points, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I want to bring up is we've been talking about, because we've been budgeting for this year and talking about everything, and the air quality assessment, which we did them last year. We did a bunch of them for some contractors, and those were all free. We're talking about this year and kind of planning. So this year we actually have a limit on the amount of air quality assessments that you're going to do, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So how many do you plan on doing?
We budgeted for about 12 this year.
We had to put a limit on them because we spend so much time on them. It's not like we come in and we're in and out of your office in a half an hour. These can take up to a half a day with a guy or two. So these are not cheap. We are giving them away free for the first 12, I believe we said.
The point of doing an air quality assessment is one, it shows you if you already have a lot of this stuff in place, but it shows you where your gaps are so you can help fix it. We're coming out a lot. These are things we do when we're doing service contracts. So we check these things. We want to make sure these things are running properly. But a lot of service techs aren't going to be checking these. These aren't regular service check items.
Yeah, correct. And that's the thing with this is we go out there and we do an air quality assessment. And it's really just to show you where your building lies. We don't go out there and say, hey, here's where your improvements need to be, and you got to use us. We give you all the information, and if you have a great service tech that you like using, we recommend giving that information to your service provider and letting them do the upgrades. But we've gone out to a couple buildings with property managers that we've done work for, and they've already got service providers, and they just love that we came out there and was able to give them a no-fee air quality assessment on their building.
The AKAs are mostly for building owners or property managers, people who have multiple buildings. We can kind of pre-qualify you, make sure that we'd be a good fit to kind of do these together, and then we can come out and perform them on your buildings. There's also actually one more thing I wanted you to talk about real quick. And you have a the clean air sticker?
Yeah.
You want to explain what that is real quick?
Yeah, so we have a clean air sticker that what we do is when we go out and we do an air quality assessment, and so for instance, we went out to a building, we did an air quality assessment, and we found that the economizer didn't exist. So we recommended to the property manager that we order an economizer that fits that thing so we can get the 35% outside air. We did an air balance on the system, and we got the filters up to par where they need to be. And then he decided to go with the UVC lighting too. And there you go. That he did every step possible to improve the air quality of his building. And for that, we put a clean air sticker on the outside of his building so everyone knows when they walk through that building that this owner has done everything it takes to improve the air quality in his building.
And is the UVC light required to get that?
Yes, most definitely so.
Because you think it's important to have it, or?
Yes, it's very important. And like I said, we touched on before, we're not over here designing our own system. This is what ASHRAE, the leader of HVAC regulations and Title 24 and all that stuff, this is what they're expressing needs to happen to improve the air quality. I mean, we have the opportunity to improve air quality in every building because we have systems that literally bring air in and out of buildings. So they're like, hey, this is what it takes to improve that air quality. Now it's getting people to actually upgrade those systems so that they're actually working to upgrade the air quality in those buildings.
Awesome. So I think anything else you want to bring up? You got anything? No. I think that was pretty right on. So I'd say please reach out and contact us at any time. You can reach out to us at estimating@bm-builders.com.
Go to our website, bm-builders.com. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I believe Twitter now.
Smash that like button. That's all I can say.
And drop any comments you have for us in the chat bars, or send an email and let us know how we're doing and what you think.
And stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we'll have our next episode. I'm not even sure what the topic is. I was going to say it, but
it'll be episode 6 of Paving the Way.
Focused on